All right, we are live, and when you're ready, you may begin.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. And welcome to April 18th, 2023, Full Design Review Board meeting. I'm calling us to order. I have a quorum of, I believe, 5 members out of my 9. Do I hear a motion to approve tonight's agenda? I think we might need to make a motion actually to amend tonight's agenda first. I'm gonna make a motion to amend tonight's agenda to push the design review board elections until the May full design review board meeting. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Emily or Elena, I didn't hear.
Aye.
Great.
From Elena, sorry.
No, you're good. I just want to make sure we have enough votes. All right.
Aye from Emily as well.
Awesome. And then staff, are we approving some meeting minutes? I know I signed some digitally, but are we approving some meeting minutes from last couple of weeks?
Yes, so that'll be March 21st, March 28th, and April 4th meeting minutes.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve March 21st, March 28th, and April 4th meeting minutes?
So moved.
All right, I hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Now we can move into tonight's agenda, which we have first up, Owl Cove 2108 Owls Cove Lane. So this is an appeal. So is the appellant present?
They are. I'm unmuting them now. Walter, you're being asked to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Walter. Hi. Yep, we can hear you, Walter.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So I just want to walk you through real quick for an appeal. You just need to prove that a guideline was misapplied or that there's new information that was not available at the time of the decision.
Right.
So feel free to take it away.
Okay, Reston's light guideline directs that lights be shielded and directable, and that lights will not be approved if they cause glare or excessive light levels on neighboring properties. The guideline can be more, but not less strict than county lighting ordinances. The 2108 backyard lights are unshielded, non-directed, cause unwanted excessive glare, and total brightness exceeds the county ordinance. Referencing my executive summary, all the photos submitted to DRB were taken after Mr. Wilbert reduced the wattage of the lantern lights. Triggers 1 and 2 show there's excessive unwanted glare inside our house. Trigger 5 shows what we have been forced to do to block out this light. Trigger 3 shows the glare on the outside of our house that we cannot block. Figure 4 shows the string lights add a lot more glare. Together, figures 1 through 3 and 5 show that even without string lights, the glare is unwanted and excessive. Even a photo included by Mr. Wilbert in his January 6th submission to DRB documents the unwanted excessive glare on our property. Note that figure 6 shows that each string light bulb is comparable in brightness to that of a lantern light, which exceeds 300 lumens. In other words, a string light bulb is not 30 lumens, as was mentioned at the original February 14th meeting, because a 30 lumen light would be more than 10 times fainter than a lantern light, and this is not the case. 30 lumens is comparable to a child's dim night light in his bedroom, his or her bedroom, and that's very dim. Also, there was mention of warmth. Lights can be very bright even if they're warm. 100,000 lumen light can be designed as a warm light, but the glare would be blinding. In other words, warmth is not an indicator or criteria of total brightness and resulting excessive glare. Mr. Wilbert tells us use blackout curtains, which in itself indicates he knows the glare is excessive. However, he believes this is not his problem We shouldn't have to use blackout curtains, and no resting guideline says that this must be done. The guidelines were never intended to throw the onus of dealing with excessive unwanted glare onto the affected party. The February 14th decision is precedent setting, potentially enabling homes throughout Reston to use unshielded, non-directed lights and string lights, notwithstanding unwanted excessive glare. Presently, there are some other properties in Reston that do have string lights and or unshielded lights. However, this is not the issue before this committee tonight, because those lights do not cause excessive unwanted glare on our property. The matter before this committee is only about the unwanted excessive glare on our property caused by the unshielded, non-directed lights in Mr. Wilbert's backyard, and the February 14th decision does nothing to prevent this unwanted excessive glare. Summing up, the lights are bright, unshielded, non-directed, cause unwanted excessive glare, and do not conform to Reston's guidelines. And I ask that Reston's December 7th, 22 decision be reinstated and the February 14th, 2023 decision be set aside. In the actual documents that I've sent, I go into much more detail about what's new information and what's not, but that's the summary of what I have to say.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Hold on one second, just in case we might need to ask you some questions, okay? So let me go around the room and see if anyone has any questions for you. I'm trying to find, I saw it a second ago, who's on the original decision. I saw it somewhere. Where is that? So we have Bruce, Sarah, and Jim, who are not here. None of them are here tonight.
Right. And one of them abstained at that meeting.
Okay. Okay. Normally I would ask them questions about whether there's, I guess I'll start off just because I have a question initially. So for the 300 lumen, where exactly, like I'm looking at the original application and I do not see that those lights are saying that they're 300 lumen. So where are you getting that information from? I'm just curious.
You're talking about the lantern lights?
The string lights.
The string lights.
The string lights are the issue, right? That you're appealing.
I'm appealing all the lights in the backyard that were addressed in the December.
Gotcha. You're appealing everything, not just the string lights. Okay. That clarifies it. Okay. All right.
Right. And I'm the one who's the affected party by these lights. I'm not the one who applied to have the lights on. So the lantern lights in Mr. Wilbert's application, he never specified the lumens, but he did provide me photos of exactly what lights they were. And I contacted the supplier of those lights and I said, what is the lumen value of those lights? And that's in my technical analysis information sheet for the lumen flux of unshielded and non-directed lights. But if you'll allow me a moment, I'll pull up the email I got from the person that sells those. Hello, Mr. Shaw. These incandescent flame tip 15-watt clear candelabra bulbs have a brightness rating of 160 to 170 lumens. So the thing to realize is there are 2 of those bulbs in each lantern. So you double that figure and you come up with more than 300 lumens for those lantern lights. Each lantern light is over 300 lumens in brightness, using the supplier's commercial specs for the light.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Let me go around and see if there's anyone else with any questions. Elena, do you have any questions about the appeal?
No, thank you.
Okay. Brian, did you have any questions?
No questions.
Mike B, did you have any questions?
My question was going to be the nature of which we were discussing, but it seems like it's the entirety of the lighting package. So that was my one comment here. But again, the issue is overall brightness, right? We're not talking about color. We're just talking about the overall brightness of the install, correct?
Right, because as I pointed out, the warmth or color of the light has no bearing on the overall brightness. You can't confirm one from the other. For example, those lights supposedly are quoted as 2,700 Kelvin, which is considered a warm color. And but as I point out, you could build 100,000 lumen light or even a lighthouse, and it would still have a warm color, but it would be blinding. And if I go even further, the star Antares and many other stars in the sky, which you could research if you want, have a warm color of 2,700 Kelvin. But if you put them the same distance as my house is to those lights there, you would fry your eyes out from the lumen flux that would come out of those, and then you'd evaporate. So warmth really isn't an indicator of overall brightness.
Yeah, again, I wasn't, to be clear, I was looking to narrow in the scope of what we were reviewing here. I wasn't
Right.
trying to discuss with you the specifics of whether or not one was equivalent to the other. I understand the difference in the topics that we're talking about. I was
Okay,
asking the scope of your item and your
Right.
particular appeal. So
yeah,
I got it. I'm with you.
it's everything. It's all the glare we've had to put up with for 6 months, and I'm really tired of having bed sheets in front of my bedroom windows to block out that light. And I can tell you, those lights are on to 2:30 in the morning, 7 days a week, sometimes to 4:30 in the morning. 2 nights ago, they were on to 4:30. They wake us up a lot. I've hundreds of times between October and now, I've looked out to see if those lights are on, and those lights are on. And I think I provided some other material to Chantal Bruno that didn't get into the package because it was too late. And it shows several other photos that indicate the light cast by the, one of the things that seem to have happened is the lights that appear in the package have the light from Mr. Wilbert's backyard doesn't really show the glare in the right-hand side of that photo, because when it was loaded up, I guess it must have affected the whatever. But if you look at the left side, which is a picture that actually comes from Mr. Wilbert's January 6th middle, you can see the lights from his yard are bright enough to cast shadows on our house. And if all our house lights are on, those shadows would look a lot brighter. And the other thing I pointed out in the bottom of my email to Chantal Bruno is that there's another important point considering the brightness of lights, which has to do how the human eye functions in daylight and nighttime. And so we see lights very differently at night than we do in the daytime, so it would seem much more pronounced. And these other figures, the top ones, you could see there's a large fort that has been built right up against the fence, and it's looking back from that direction back to the house. And again, you could see the photos that were loaded up on the package are not a lot duller, but in this case, duller than they actually are. And again, because that's daylight, the contrast isn't the same as the contrast you would see in full darkness. So the lights in full darkness actually are much more noticeable. And most of the photos that I submit previously through all the documents I've sent to Reston Association, they were mostly taken between 10 o'clock at night and 2:30 in the morning, and sometimes even later. And it shows quite a bit more brightness. And don't forget, you're using your rods, not your cones, when you're looking at light at night.
Okay. Emily, do you have any questions for the applicant? Or the appellant, sorry.
I don't have any immediate questions aside from stating that the Fairfax County ordinance for residential use usually does say with a color temperature of 3,000 Kelvin or less for residential use, which it does appear that the light fixtures that were supplied, the information that was supplied by the appellant was at 2,700 Kelvin. And I'm not sure how much more bearing we have over and above that, but Fairfax County Light Ordinance does list things at 3,000 Kelvin.
Well, and I also don't think that the issue is the color. It's the brightness. And so what I think
I went through. a
Hold on,
detailed
hold on,
analysis.
sir. Yeah,
Oh,
hold on,
sorry.
sir. I want to get moving on. So I think that the guideline of glare was misapplied because we clearly have in our lighting guidelines that design wattage and type of lamp minimizes objectionable glare onto neighboring properties or streets. And I don't think when you're looking at the application, the actual application really has very little information. The affected party, which in this case now is the appellant, has provided probably the most information that's been helpful in actually determining what these lights are and how it is. So I don't know personally how the panel made a decision without, based on what application I'm seeing. So I believe that guideline was misapplied. So I'm going to make a motion to accept the appeal.
Second.
So there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
If you need any more discussion from me, I'll be happy to provide it.
No,
but-
hold on. Just wait 1 second. We're accepting your appeal at the moment. So just it's a good thing right now. So all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? All right. Motion passes to accept the appeal 5-0. So now we'll hear the application de novo, which means we'll hear it over again. Is the applicant here?
The applicant is here. I am requesting that they unmute now.
We're unmuted.
All right, welcome. So we're gonna review the application again, which basically just means we're gonna kind of, if you could walk us through, we obviously know what's going on, but walk us through exactly the application. Staff, if you could pull up the actual original application, it's only a couple pages. I think personally, what is causing a lot of the glare is simply the string lights, and our ordinance, our design guidelines basically say that you can't cause unwanted glare onto neighboring properties. So I think there's different ways people have combated this in the past with whether they make little shields for the lights. There's different ways where there's maybe put it on a timer, whatever it be. But I think you could walk us through your application, but we have a long agenda tonight, so I just want to make sure that we keep things moving. So I personally think the string lights are the issue. Yeah.
All right, let's address the issue. The string lights, according to the Fairfax County, they're not supposed to go over 1,500. These are 900 lumens, not Kelvin. So we're talking about lumens. And then if you look at the document that the affected party sent, it even says that there's an exception to the requirements for the non-shielded lights, and that is if the lumens are less than 1,500. So when you read that on page 7, the second paragraph, you can see that with our 900 lumens for our string lights, plus they're dimmable. So we actually said during that last meeting that we had, we dim it for 50% just to save energy. Since then, we've actually dimmed it to 25%. So it's way below the 900 lumens. So, and then if you look at the lights that we changed from 30 watts to 15 watts. These are little chandelier lights. And if you look up how many lumens 12 volt, 15 watt light bulb presents, it's 100 lumens. So we're way below the county's requirement for that. Plus, I don't know if he ever goes out there he sees there's a full moon, it actually casts a lot of light onto his house. So the fix to the issue is, like, my neighbor has some bright lights on his patio, and he has the LED lights, and we just close our blinds and we don't see it. So it's the sheer, and he says there's no requirement to have a sheer thing, but he can have no stress if he has regular blinds and not sheer blinds. That's the issue. So he just wants to have the no glare from his no light protruding into his house. Anybody that has a light, that has no blinds will have light protruding into their house. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah, unfortunately, we are just looking at design guideline from
Okay.
impact
So-
of glare of lighting.
so
So
what I
I
want-
cannot
what I want-
enforce what people put on their windows
Okay.
or whatnot, right?
So what I want to enforce is the 900 lumens for the lights that we have here. We dimmed them down to 25%. So that's way below. And then, like I said, we changed the 30 watt bulbs. Since the meeting that we had before, we had switched them into 15 watt bulbs.
So the only question I guess I have with that is how are you coming up with the 900 lumens? Because I'm looking at the application. Staff, can you go to
We went on.
can you go to slide 67? Oh yeah, you're right here. So like where I mean, you know, I don't know if you're telling me. I have no idea how many lumens there are.
Right.
'Cause
We went
this
on.
doesn't
We
tell
went
me.
online to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer's the one that stated it.
And who is the manufacturer? Because this specification doesn't even have who makes these
It is-
things, who
It should say,
is it?
who the manufacturer is on there.
It doesn't say anything. And that's what I think, to me, it just, those
You're
are
looking at-
the problem child from what I'm seeing, from a glare standpoint. Let me, just because we're hearing the application de novo, I need to hear from the affected party for their 3 minutes. So let me jump over to him and then I'll come back and we'll ask you any questions, okay?
Okay.
So staff, could you go back to the affected party?
The affected party has been unmuted. Would you like me to start the timer?
Hey, Walter. So just, I know you know the process, but you have 3 minutes to do your affected party status. So if you could walk us through your affected party again, that would be great.
Okay.
3 minutes. Thank you.
Well, rather than repeat what I already said, I will remind you, I put a detailed technical analysis of all the brightness associated with all the lights that I have concerns about. And they're much greater than what Mr. Wilbur is saying. The 900 lumens makes no sense whatsoever. I contacted Amazon. Those bulbs were produced by Lucasumi as a supplier. They're very unique. You can't find them anywhere else. I spoke to Amazon, their technical representative, custom service. They contacted Lucasumi. They tell me those are 3 watt bulbs. And in my technical analysis, I analyzed the brightness of 3 watt bulbs, every possible way you could go through them. I don't know if that's in your package. Yeah, there it is. Very detailed analysis. That's not 900 lumens. It's much more than that. And the 2 lantern lights, Mr. Wilbert says those bulbs that he's got in there are 100 lumens. And as I mentioned, I talked to the manufacturer and I read you his email back to me. Each bulb is more than 100 lumens. It'll take me a while to find it and I'm going to lose my time speaking. If you'll just bear with me, I'm trying to go as fast as I can. The light brightness of those bulbs, the 15 watt, 160 to 170 lumens. There are 2 bulbs in each lantern, and that amounts to 320 to 340 lumens per lantern, and 2 lantern lights alone are 680 lumens. Then there's some lights built right into the fire pit wall. And again, as I said, when you look at figure 6 that I provided, comparing the light, that's one way to tell the brightness of the light against lantern light. Those bulbs in that string lights are comparable to the lantern. That's in material that I provided in my executive summary. And based on that, as I discussed in the remarks I made previously, they're really exactly what I said in my technical analysis. 900 makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, for that to be 900, you would have to have child's nightlight bulbs out there, which are very dim, that you would put in your child's bedroom. And that's not what you're seeing looking at those figures. And if they were as faint as Mr. Wilbert says they are, you really wouldn't see the lights on my screen or lights on my porch. There's no doubt that they're there. I see it every single night, 7 nights a week. And you can look at my technical analysis and you can figure out what's wrong with it. You tell me, because I spent a lot of time working on that. Like I say, I talked to Amazon. Okay.
Your time is up. Would the board want him to continue or?
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think,
Nicole,
yeah.
I'd like
There's
to
another
make a
affected party.
comment
Oh,
on
yep.
behalf of Reston Association.
Yep,
I
another
just
affected
want
party.
to, correct. I just want to point out, if staff could go to slide 79. This was what was built. However, this was not what was originally approved. The two fixtures on top of the veneer wall, the pillars, were actually originally downlights installed on the seat wall that were downlighting. And then our post-design review inspector identified some issues with the project as it was built. And so the applicant was requested to come back through the DRB process in order to get a final determination on their deviations. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that.
And so is that part, or is that coming in the future, you're saying? Or is that part of this de novo
No.
application?
It should be something that the DRB is aware of, in the fact that what you see was what was built, but it was not what was originally approved. So the panel meeting in which the panel made the decision to approve it was actually the second review. So the first review was actually done, I think 2 years ago. And the owner deviated from what was originally approved. And so the panel that approved the application in February approved the deviations from the original application.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. So let's go around the room and see if anyone has any questions for the applicant about any of the lights that are kind of up for debate here. But Elena, do you have any questions for the applicant? Any thoughts, comments?
So, so on the picture that's being displayed right now, where exactly is the affected party's house? Is that house higher on the hill?
Yes.
Okay. So if we could go back to that picture of the variations in dimming that the lights are capable of. There was a range showing a range of dimness down to
Slide 67.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the applicant says that I'm just trying to verify that they've been dimmed to 50%,
25 now.
25 now.
Since the last time that we had our meeting, we've been dimming it to 25.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Brian, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. I think I share your concerns about my focus is probably on the string lights, mostly that I'm kind of having an issue with, especially in some of these pictures. I mean, just it's so incredibly bright looking at it. So I think that's my biggest concern looking at this application.
Mike B, do you have any questions?
I was going to ask you, I mean, you've obviously made some strides with regard to reducing, where you could in terms of the dimmable aspects.
Yes.
I see on here at the bottom, there's a thing here saying 8 hours timing function. Is there, are you limiting the time that these are on? Are these all the time lights?
Yeah, we're doing it to the 8 hours. So we take the dogs out. So I always need, unless I'm turning on and off, I have a puppy I have to take out every like 2 or 3 hours to go urinate and defecate outside. So that's what I do. And I stay up until 3 or 4 in the morning. It's true. I'm a night owl. So last time they said, hey, can we limit the time that you put on the lights? And they said that's overreaching, since Racing Association has already approved string lights. So, it's a lawsuit waiting to happen if you let some people have string lights and other people not. The issue is how many lumens. So that's the only thing you can do it. And unless you have a meter.
Well, hang on a minute. I'm not looking for a discussion on lawsuits or pending any. No, I asked you a very specific question about whether or not the timer function was in play.
I understand.
What we are evaluating and having a discussion about is one thing. So
I understand.
let's table that for a second. Michael, that's enough for me. I'm good.
Okay. Emily, do you have any questions about any of the lights?
Has a field study been done to calculate the actual amount of lumens that the string lights and the landscape in general is emitting? Because to several people's points, photographs can be deceiving, but also, that seems to be the hang up, no pun intended, about the lumen count. And if this is, even if they're dimmed to 25%, or on a timer, would they still be below the lumen count that would be adequately reducing glare? So I don't know if that study has been done.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, I don't think I've ever. We'll do a light study for a whole neighborhood of lighting. Obviously it's a unique situation because they're in. It's under string lights are under the decorative category, and we don't. The only guideline that we have that can really apply to this at the moment is the glare guideline that says, design, wattage, and type of lamp should minimize objectionable glare onto neighboring properties. And so there's a neighboring property that's having objectionable glare. So I think a study would be useful with some sort of lumen reader. I think also we need more information on the actual string lights themselves. To me, the cut sheet provided does not have much information at all, and the appellant or the affected party did a lot of research to try to even find the manufacturer and get the work. But to me, every lighting manufacturer that's a UL listed light in America has to provide a spec sheet with all of these requirements of lighting levels and not only color temperature but lumens per bulb. So I mean, I'm leaning toward a deferral till we have more information on the actual string lights, and then we can put it all together and say, okay, well, how many lumens is emitting from this yard, and what is kind of the total impact on the neighboring property due to glare. But I just don't think we have enough information at this moment. That's why I even motioned to accept the appeal, because I just didn't feel like there's enough information on the lights that are installed to make a decision. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, but to me, I can't make a decision because they're saying 900 lumens, other guys saying, it's close to 15,000 lumens. That's a big difference. So
I'm in agreement. I think that more information should be provided before the application is either approved or denied.
Yeah. So
I would say, if we're asking for opinions, I think that I'm leaning towards disapproving the string lights entirely, because I think that, based off the guidelines, they're just not really meeting any of the guidelines. I think that they're providing so much, they're up so high, they're providing so much, light spill. It's obviously lighting up their yard really nicely, but it's also obviously complicating the neighbors. And I think that what's nice about the yard is that there seem to be a lot of opportunities with like the site wall and stuff like that to do some more low level lighting that could like some of these slum pictures I think they've already got built into the wall and stuff that could shine down, still give them enough light and brightness and safety for their pets and things like that. But I think that the string lights are, it seems to me to be pretty clearly not in keeping with the guidelines, and so I would argue that we should disapprove them.
it's tricky because string lights can be done right, and I think with the right information we can make the right decision. Like right now, I don't have string lights on my property, but my last property, I did have string lights.
Sure.
So I would hate to I know they're very popular and a lot of people have them. So I don't want to I know we've approved some in the past and we've, denied some in the past, and it all kind of depends. To me, it all depends on color temperature and lumens and glare on properties,
I think the difference here might be though, is if the string lights, I agree. I've seen string lights, if they were like on the underside of the deck or they were like used in a smaller area, I could see them being a little more effective, but these kind of line the entire yard. It outlines the entire perimeter of the yard almost, which is where I think the tilt is in my opinion.
And other ideas, just throwing it out there. I've seen ones that have, basically hoods. They're kind of bistro light hoods that have, a little circle round so that it literally directs all the light downwards. So there's no spill upwards. which also could be an option that could help if they do want to keep them up high. I think the arrangement in the backyard looks very nice. I think aesthetically, it appeals. It's not designed poorly. I think it does look aesthetically pleasing, which is also one of our kind of guidelines to make sure that it's in function with the backyard. It's going well, and I think it does. I just think it's causing too much glare. So that's why I think I'm fine with the other lights, assuming that in when we add up all the lumens, we're kind of in a reasonable range of glare on basically hopefully not getting past the property lines. That's kind of the goal. And I think since the other property is up higher, I think potentially hoods on all of these string lights could potentially be an option to help get rid of all of that glare. So I'm not up for a disapproval on the string lights, just because I think it could set a bad precedent when these lights are so common, and I think it's going to be a common issue. It's just, I think the right ones need to be procured and have the right, light levels on them. But just my opinion. Does anybody want to make a motion? Does anyone want to have any other thoughts on it?
I'm with you, Michael. I think we should, string lights in general, I don't have a problem with. I think if we had a little bit more supporting information, we might be able to go someplace with this thing. I'm kind of sharing your thoughts on the matter. If we had a little bit more supporting information, we might be able to do something.
I'm going to make a motion to
Well,
go ahead,
can I
Alana.
just say one thing? Can I just
Yep,
say one thing?
yep.
Well, I'm in agreement with the Michaels, but I think we do need to say something about those lights that were installed not in keeping with the original approval. That whether we want to have them ask the applicant to come back with a revised application that addresses all of the lights, including the ones that were installed not in keeping with the original approval, etc. So I just wanted to bring that up before any motions got rolling.
Yeah, and I think those were approved on the second go around, right? The decision that was just appealed, those were part of that application and were approved. They were not approved. They were not a part of the original application.
Okay.
So this is basically the third go around on them.
Okay.
I'm kind of looking at those as decorative / post lamps in our guidelines. I think aesthetically they work with the design of the backyard. I don't think those are the culprit of the glare. I still strongly think it's those string lights. I think the fixture selected aesthetically goes with the house, so I'm not too concerned with those, but they were approved part of the previous kind of revised application.
So just to clarify, the post lantern, slim light, spotlight, and string lights were on the approval. So I just wanted to make sure when the motion is made, we address all four.
Yeah, and one thing what's unique, if you look at this motion, and I don't know if it's a typo or not, but it's saying all these lights are 12 volt. None of these lights are 12. I don't think the only ones in the walls are probably the 12 volt. The post lanterns are probably 120 volt regular wire lights, if I had to guess. But the wall, anyways. So regardless, I think we motioned to defer to allow the applicant to provide more information on the string lights, to have a manufacturer, make, model, and specifically lumens per bulb. We would also recommend to investigate adding a hood to the light, or looking at an entirely different light fixture if a hood is not available for these string lights, and also suggest a lumen study be done once a new light fixture is selected, if required, if the new one is still putting out a significant amount of lumens, and it would be helpful in our decision, but it's not a requirement. That's my motion to defer. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, is there any further discussion on that?
Michael, can you establish a timeline to come back?
Yeah, request the applicant to provide that information. What is today? Yeah, within 60 days of this approval letter or the deferral letter. Elena, do you accept my amendment on timeline?
Yes.
Any further discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any against?
Against.
Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 4-1. All right, thank you guys. All right, moving on to staff. Is application H, was that the one that we can't review, or am I?
That is correct. So this one has
Did you notify the applicant? Are they on?
they're on.
Okay, but we can't vote, correct?
That is correct. This should be deferred to the next.
Because, yeah, I see, because the 3, it was Mike, Elena, and Brian, so we'd only have 2 people voting, so unfortunately, we can't do that. Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to defer application H to the next available design review board meeting due to not having a proper quorum to review the appeal. And I assume the only person that can vote on that is Emily. Well, I guess it's just a motion to defer, so anyone can vote because we're not reviewing it. So, anyone want to second that?
I'm happy to set. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Motion passes 5-0. Sorry about that, guys. We will review it next month. Moving on to application I, which is Birchfield Woods Cluster.
If anyone is here for Birchfield, could you please raise your hand? We were unable to identify them. Andrew B, are you waving your hand? Okay, being unmuted.
Oh, yeah, I'm here for Birchfield Woods. Sorry about that.
All right, perfect.
Welcome, Andrew. If you could walk us through, it looks like you guys are replacing all your site lighting.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I wasn't the one to actually put the packet together. So if you have questions, definitely ask, and I should be able to answer. But long story short, I believe all the light fixtures, like the light poles in our neighborhood, were original, and they've all been rusting at the base. And one of them kind of rusted through at the bottom and was a threat to, falling on someone's cars and property. I believe you have a picture somewhere in there. It was broken up into different attachments for me. So we removed that one and put a cone over it, just kind of, so it wouldn't fall and hurt someone. And then we put together this application. So the original light fixtures are no longer made or available. So we are requesting to put in these new light fixtures. I don't know if it specifies it, but we voted at our last board meeting to basically try and basically do a phased approach to replace half, replace the other half. But that was pending DRB approval on this. So that's the long story, is that one has been removed just because it was cracked and wobbling. And then we were looking for approval for the new light fixtures, which I believe we've included as well.
Okay. And so just to clarify, you're only replacing lights where there's lights now. You're not adding additional lights, correct?
Correct. Yes. So we should have a map in there of all the replacement areas. But yeah, no new lights we put in.
And you're matching all the existing height of all the lights are all going to be the identical height?
Yes. Yeah. And yes, I don't know if that's specified, but that definitely can be done.
Yeah. I was just I couldn't tell from the photometric study what height they were assuming for the lights. It just didn't say. And so I was just curious. I would assume that they probably measured it based on just your existing lighting, but I don't,
Yeah, I
Flags
believe.
asking the question. So,
Yeah, definitely. Please ask all the questions.
and then just my last question. It looks like all the new lights will be black with black poles.
Correct. Yes, black poles and black fixtures.
Okay. All right. Let me go around the room and see if anyone else has any other questions. Elena, do you have any questions?
No, unless someone can tell me which slide the photometric study's on.
Page
Yeah, it's
10.
on. Yeah, page
Thank
10.
you. That's my only question. Thank you.
Brian, do you have any questions?
Nope, my only question was on the color, so thank you for clarifying.
Mike?
I was going to ask about height, but you beat us to it there, my friend.
Well, I just, we've reviewed enough of these recently. I just wanted to go through the list.
Fair point.
Emily, did you have any questions?
No, you are in fact clairvoyant.
Okay. I do have one additional question. Do you know if this fixture has an option to put some sort of shield on it? One thing that we've had a lot recently is we'll approve all new lighting, and the new lighting is all much obviously brighter, as you just probably witnessed in the last application, than current lighting, right? So sometimes neighbors will, then realize, oh wow, these poles are really light, they're in my windows, etc. So then we ask that sometimes it's good to have a fixture that has a shield, to be able to just put a shield on the front of it, to be able to downward kind of project the light to block those problem spots. Do you know if this light kind of has that option?
Yeah, that's you pulled up the exact slide. So
Oh, is that what that is? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think that's how I understand that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. This answers my question.
Okay.
All right, perfect. Yeah. Other than that, the color temperature looks good. The lumens look good based on the photometric. So I think overall, it's the fixture looks very similar to the current fixture. The only difference is it looks like you have red poles. I don't know if they're meant to be red. I've never seen a red pole, honestly, in other neighborhoods.
I
don't know if they're supposed to be red or not, but I like the idea of going to black. I think it'll look much, much, much better. So, does anyone want to make a motion?
I did have a question. The lights will be installed in phases.
Yeah. So just the cluster has the funds to replace them all at once. But I think there was just that's a substantial payment all at once. So we were basically voted to try and do it like half and half, like half now, half in, 2 to 6 months. But that was, we're aware that we want to keep it all looking the same, but that was kind of pending DRB. We weren't sure how fast they need to be replaced.
I mean, technically, I think you have 18 months to institute your approval. So as long as you guys do it, fully within 18 months, I think it's actually okay. So it sounds like you're going to do it well within that time period. So I don't think we need to put a stricter time period on it. So does anyone want to make a motion?
I'd move to approve the lighting replacement as submitted.
Does anyone want to second that?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I think
Sorry, I just have one thing. We're discussing the page where we were discussing the shielding that we are currently looking at. I just want to make it clear that it is saying the ratio series. And I believe that the photo was showing the red. Okay, this is the red line one showing the different shielding options. Side shield, side. Okay, sorry, I was looking at the wrong page. That answered my question perfectly. So yes, then no other comments.
Yeah, the only amendment I might make to that, because I don't think it's super clear, is the height of the pole. And so I would say that the height of the pole needs to match the existing.
I would
just can't-
accept that amendment. I
Yeah.
have no problem with that, Michael. I think
Okay.
that's fair. I understood that from the applicant that that was the intent, so I have no problem stipulating thusly.
Okay.
And I think,
Um,
Brian, did you second, or I don't remember who
I-
did?
I did, and I agree with that amendment. Makes sense.
Okay. All right, so any other further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Andrew.
All right. Thank you all.
All right, moving on to 1631 Washington Plaza.
The applicant is being unmuted now. As well as his contractor. Yazir and Graham, you should be unmuted now.
Hello, guys.
All right, welcome back. You guys have some new information for us?
We do. We have actually our engineer too with us.
Okay. Who will be taking the wheel and presenting it? Because I think
Let's-
most
let's start
everybody's
with Graham,
familiar. Okay.
Graham.
Hi guys, how are you? Graham, are you on?
I'm here. Yeah. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey,
thank
Graham.
Okay. Good evening. Thanks for having us.
Welcome back.
Yes, we have our design team here with us, architect team. So if there's any answers we can give, we wanted to make sure we were all here together. I'm happy to talk through. We went through this application last time, and the board provided us some, specific guidance on updating the application, detailing the shaft, and locating the refrigerant lines and the gas line and water heater flue. So all of that's been updated in the guide, in the design. And there was a note about the fence, screen fence, and detailing that. So all of that's been included, and happy to talk through any specifics if anyone has any questions.
No, I think it'd be good either have you or your design team to walk us through. I mean, obviously the major change is this aluminum clad panel, which is new, and then the screening on the roof, like you just mentioned. Kind of just walking through those materials, how they're installed, etc.
Sure. So the shop was originally approved as exposed ductwork, and there were concerns about that was called to be painted Reston brown. And during the installation, there were concerns about what that would look like, and there were concerns about some of the details on the seams and the brackets that held it up, and some of that was driven by the county in terms of how to support it properly. And then in the last review, the board gave us some direction to move toward an Alucobond panel or a prefab metal panel that would be a little cleaner. So that's detailed in the rendering. We dropped off physical samples. It comes in a variety of colors, but we picked some neutral ones that would either tie into the brick or tie into the metal gutter downspouts. They also have some gray, colors that are more, indicative of like a aluminum color. If you go to the rendering slide, whoever.
Yeah, like slide 22 staff, I think really kind of helps show. Yeah.
There you go. Yep. So this has now all been updated to show a prefab panel that would completely encapsulate the exposed ductwork at the minimum profile we could. The metal panels are all supported by a galvanized, framed material that essentially these panels cleat to. And Alucobond has all standard, details in terms of manufacturer's installation. So we would be following, their installation guidelines. There's 2 required cleanouts that would be, cut out of the face of these panels. Those would be fabricated access panels. You can see that goes up to the top of the existing parapet. We're transitioning the ductwork. Currently there's an 18-inch requirement to clear the combustible materials requirement from the county. But we're going to change that to insulated wrap duct, and that is going to give us the ability to 90 that right at the top of the wall and keep the ductwork under the existing parapet spine wall that's going up there just to the right of the shaft. And so it 90s across the roof, and then it has to go back up to meet the inlet at the exhaust fan, which is shown there on the roof. The exhaust fan is up and in place. The steel is up and in place. And the screen wall that we see there would be a louvered screen wall. That was one of the feedback that the board provided. And so we picked a visual barrier screen that would be, more standard HVAC louver that would block the visual side of it. And that would be completely suspended on the steel, bolted in place. So if there was ever a reason that, the deli left or that needed to return back to a roof, that could all come apart and be disassembled, or if the unit had to be replaced or maintained, there would be access to easily take those panels back down. But we had a structural engineer completely detail that, and so all of this would go to the county for their blessing after, the RA gives us a final approval. We can see here also, like in this rendering on the left, there's control lines and refrigerant lines that go under the planter box, Trex deck, and then up the gutter downspout to the right of the shaft. And that was our best path for bringing, the control lines and refrigerant lines up to the roof. It couldn't be shared in the same cavity as the exhaust duct for the mechanical code. And so LARCA had worked with us to move that to the existing downspout, and we would essentially put another faux gutter in the same painted metal and run that adjacent the downspout that we see there on the right. And once it gets up to the top, it would move across the roof to the equipment.
And did you say that there's going to be a Trex deck put over top of that? So you're not actually going to see that. Is that accurate?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And I believe LARCA has recently replaced the waterproofing there. And so their next step after this would be to, put the decking across there. That's our understanding.
Okay. And then just another question: has their design review board approved this submission?
We talked to RA about this, and we asked if this had to be a formal resubmission to them, and it was our understanding that this was more clarifying what the prior approved documents were, and that it didn't need to be fully re-reviewed by LARCA. So when it was deferred last time, we got the engineers to detail everything that was requested, and then we brought it back to you for your review and approval.
Okay.
Just to clarify, the only thing that needed approval by LARCA was for the refrigerant line, and that has not been approved. We don't have an approval for that.
Okay, but ultimately we can't. I mean, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, they have to get. We're not responsible for them getting their own approvals through their own condo association.
Yeah, the board. George was the president last time all of this went in front of them, and we participated in that meeting, and they unanimously voted approval on all of our applications. There was a glass storefront and then 3 applications: the water heater vent, the gas vent, the shaft, and the refrigerant lines. And so that went to their board and they unanimously approved it.
Okay.
So Michael, to clarify, because I think that's an important part of this, is that the DRB cannot approve something that has not been approved by LARCA yet. So,
But why is that true?
The building belongs to LARCA.
No, I understand. I understand that, but why are we responsible for making sure that they get your approvals from their specific condo association? If they wanted to come to us first, as an example, and then go to LARCA, why is that not allowed?
Procedurally, they don't have the authority to even submit an application for something they don't have approval for. So it's not something that you are able to, in theory, review. LARCA is technically the applicant. LARCA is allowing the unit owner with an approval from LARCA to submit the application and be reviewed by the design review board.
Because it's in common property.
That is correct.
Okay. Just
they
clarifying.
did approve it, guys. But they never sent us the approval letter, and they're so confused, and that's why we way behind over 2 years. We sent that to LaShonda today with the condition of RA approvals. Can we share that, LaShonda, please, whatever we send you today?
So what was sent was the application that you submitted. It wasn't the actual approval letter. I actually got it.
But it sounds like they have the approval, so I'm not too worried about it. I mean, unless our legal thinks differently, I think it sounds like it got approved recently. We just don't have a letter yet of it.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Sorry, if you'd like Tony to weigh in, I would suggest a motion to executive session for Tony to review procedurally the legality of approving an application.
I have the letter. I have, if it's of any usefulness, the Lake Ann Reston Architectural Control Committee gave us an approval with stipulations for the refrigerant lines, and their notes say, it says approves with stipulation, and it says the following comments, stipulations. It says exterior modification must have DRB approval and permits needed. So that was the document that ran forward to do these updates to get in front of you.
Okay.
But I think what LaShonda's mentioning is they have a process of actually mailing a letter, and that letter has that detailed, and I think that's what George is currently working to get to give to Yasser. And I can share that if that's of any usefulness. But anyway, they did look at it. They asked us a lot of questions about it. They met us there, and it was their direction that moved the refrigerant lines to the right side. And this is all, according to what they directed us to do.
Okay. I would like to take up Cam on making a motion to move to executive session so I can get some clarification on the legal side of things that's out of my wheelhouse. So I'll make a motion to move to executive session.
Second.
Right here. All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Michael, just to be clear, that was a motion to move to executive session to consult with counsel.
100% was.
Thank you very much.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All right. Bear with us, guys. We'll be right back. Are we?
No, you're not in executive session yet. Elena, you'd have to join.
All right. Sorry, guys. Thank you for being patient. Tony, Council, could you give me a cleansing motion statement?
Mr. Chair, I believe I heard you made a motion that the members of this board affirm and represent that only those matters appropriate for executive session, being that of consultation with counsel, were heard or discussed in executive session.
Yes, that's exactly what I motioned. So here a second.
I'll second your motion.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. So long story short, we can't review the line sets basically, but everything else we can review and issue an approval or disapproval on tonight. The line sets, because we do not have an approval from LARCA, which this is a common area element. We cannot approve that based on hearsay or emails or not official letters. So with that said, we've heard the design application. Let's go to the affected parties. Affected parties have 3 minutes to state their affected partiness. And if you're representing a group, you get 5 minutes. So LaShonda, if you want to, or Ana Rosa, whoever's leading the charge, want to go through the affected parties, and then we will hear from them.
Sure. We're going to unmute Mr. Alec Berry.
He's been asked to unmute.
Mr. Berry, I can't hear you, but you are unmuted. Oh. There you are. Still can't hear you. We can move on to the second one. We can come back to you, Alec, while we work out that Mr. Raymond. Pardo?
I'm unmuting him now. Mr. Alec, I would recommend you log back into the meeting. It usually helps resolve that issue.
Hi, this is Ramon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. Your
So
3 minutes start now.
thanks. I have a few points and I hope that the board, if I run over my 3 minutes, just give me a couple extra minutes. I don't have something to read, but I have a few points. So I want to make very clear that we have documented information that shows that their extension lines for the refrigerant are not approved. So both the owner and the contractor told you they were approved. They're not approved. And we've spoken directly with CMC, who's a community management, and with the president of LARCA. It is not approved. So I appreciate your vote on that. If you could go to, so I want to say that slide number 5 shows that the parapet is, I'm sorry, that the shaft hasn't been lowered. In the last meeting, the contractor specifically said that the county was going to allow them to lower the shaft to be lower than the parapet or just much lower, because right now it goes well above the parapet, and slide number 5 shows that that has not been changed. And I heard him say something earlier saying that it would be lowered. So I'd love to see that in writing. Slide number 9 is the whole. I'm not going to get into the code violations or the lack of reinforcement rebar analysis that was done there, but it says refrigerant line location. That's erroneous. If I may back up and just kind of just briefly say the reason we're here is because what their plan said is not what's being built. And that's happening now, and it's happening over and over and over. They set up a set of plans, they showed it to us, and we said, oh, okay, although we didn't like it, we said okay to it. And what has been constructed is completely different than what they built. So going back to slide number 10, this is their proposal for bringing refrigerant lines to the top of the roof. It's a joke. We took a marker. Is this a contractor or an architect that did this? So what's it going to look like? They'll tell you what they think it's going to look like, but this is a joke. I can go and write in pencil on a plan and submit it and hope that it gets approved. Not to mention the comment earlier about they're going to put Trex. Trex has been out there for like 2 months, which shows the disconnect between these folks and what's actually here. Then going to slide number 22. Well, basically, my point is that everything that they're showing on here is not accurate. So my last point is I sent in a couple of photos. I don't know if you can show them, but if you can match them up with slide 22, it just proves my point. They showed the louvers. This is
time is currently up, but the DRB would like him to continue.
Yeah, can you just walk me through these pictures real quick, sir?
yeah. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can.
I believe it's slide 22. If you match up the photos that I just sent you, that I just took before this meeting, with slide number 22, which I hopefully, if I got it right, is their plan number A300. This is a perfect example of what we've been seeing over and over. The plans say one thing and the construction is completely different. Look at the Louvre location. They've got dimensions on it, which are completely inaccurate. They've got a location on it, which is completely inaccurate, not to mention the shoddy construction. So the 3 photos that I just sent over an hour ago is a perfect example. You match it up with these plans of the big picture here. What they're putting in their plans is not what's being constructed. It's a Mickey Mouse job and it's incompetent. That's all I have to say. And it's bringing down my value. If I wanted to sell my house right now, I'd be in big trouble, to be honest. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Ramon. Next up, staff.
Alec is back on the line. I will try to unmute him again. Alec, please speak up if you can.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I logged in again on my cell phone. So the issues I have, Ramon touched on this a little bit. The first is this is such an egregious and disgusting construction, and the applicant's own photos are showing how horrible this thing is. When you come down to Lake Anne, as I hope the members of the DRB have done, it stands out like a sore thumb. Mason has the picture behind his on his background right now, and you can see it. It's horrible. Now, what originally had been approved is one thing, but what they ended up building is, again, an abomination. And I want to stress that Article 6, Section 1D2, Paragraph B, any person or entity obtaining approval by the DRB shall not deviate from the plans and specifications approved without prior written consent of the DRB. They just went ahead and did stuff because they said Fairfax County required them to, which is probably correct, but that's not the fault of the DRB. It's not the fault of LARCA, and it's not the fault of me, all of whom approved the original smaller shaft design. You can't just decide you're going to make something bigger just because to see if you can get away with it. My property value has been taken from me and given to Delia Italiano. The new plan is an even larger shaft. You can see how close it is to my kitchen window and bedroom window. And if you look at the new plans, that's going to completely obstruct my view out of those windows. This is horrible. And then what they're planning on doing on top of the roof, and I'm not even getting into the air conditioning and the additional lines, which have not been approved. This is just making a mockery of the architectural, sanctity of Lake Anne. Another point, these are supposed to go through the Fairfax County ARB. They clicked a checkbox that said they had gotten all necessary county approvals. They did not. They bypassed the ARB. I spoke with somebody at the ARB who said external modifications of this type absolutely have to go through the ARB. So this is just a complete debacle. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have a community member. Are you all open to hearing his comments?
Was this the one, is this the part of the Reston?
Yes, he's identified himself as part of the Reston Historic Trust Bond.
Okay, yep. Can you just unmute him so I can talk to him?
Yes.
What was his name? Sorry.
Mason.
Mason Miller.
Hey, Mason. Can you walk me through? So you would like to speak on the application. Are you an affected party? Are you said you're part of the Reston Historic?
Well, I think everybody in Reston who's been here for 50 years is an affected party. But I also serve on the board of the Reston Historic Trust, which is a neighboring unit that owns a condo there at the Lake Anne of Reston Condominium Association.
Great. Well, for the record, could you state your full name and address just for our meeting minutes?
Sure. Thomas Mason Miller. I live at 2027 Lake Breeze Way, Reston, Virginia.
Great.
20191 if you want everything, you know.
Yeah, and then just a reminder, you have 3 minutes for your statement, okay?
Okay. I just want to say that I've been heartbroken when I'm working. Was working at Founders Day this weekend. And quite often I'll park up North Shore and I end up taking the pedestrian path that goes through this area of Chimney House Road, which is probably the main pedestrian entrance to this plaza. And what is up there now, I can't believe anybody approved, either at the condominium association or at the DRB. But as time's gone on, what I've found out is that what is up there right now is not what was approved by the DRB. And I'm concerned that you're going to approve this expansion of making this thing even bigger. And by the way, you can see it on the other side of the plaza, the change it's made to the roof line as well. But the idea that now they want to make it bigger and they're going to wait until the DRB has said yes to go pull their permits. And then when the fire marshal says this isn't going to work, we're going to be back here again, making it even bigger. I'm really getting alarmed. I really thought that Lake Anne was sort of, sacred. And I can't believe it's gotten this far. But I really do think that part of this discussion should be that what is up there right now that they're trying to modify is not what the DRB approved in the first place.
For the record,
That's all.
we have not approved anything. Just for the record, nothing has been approved on our side. Just for the record.
But you didn't approve the shaft at all?
There's been no approval issued on this project at this moment. We've all been in. Well, let me rephrase that. There wasn't an original approval that was much smaller, correct? And then
Right.
it's been appealed, and now it's a new application at this moment. So
Right, because that's how we got here.
yeah, correct.
Something was approved that was impossible, not feasible, because code wasn't going to allow for it. And now, I can't argue that maybe this looks better or worse, but it would look a lot better if we were maintaining the architectural Lake Anne. It's really a shame that one slide that the last gentleman who's a neighbor put up there. You're looking at all of that stuff that was removed from the pharmacy by the Historic Trust to preserve it. And then as you're glancing to the right, here is this big corroding metal post or a metal shaft that you can see at the same time you're trying to look at that. And I really hope that the DRB sort of considers the history of Reston and what needs to be preserved. I wouldn't give another inch. I would say we approved this, and if you can't build that, fine. I would not approve anything that continues this process. That's me.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Staff, any other affected parties?
Not that's present. We had one other, but he did not confirm his attendance.
Okay. Let me go around the room and see if there's any questions. I guess, and just the first thing that I do want to ask is, and I know it leans kind of similar on the LARCA situation. Has the Fairfax, we had that little intro to the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board for historically designated properties, meet and greet or whatever on a meeting maybe a couple months ago. Have they weighed in on this officially, and have staff talked to them about this?
We did, and what happened, as far as I'm aware, and Ramon can confirm, there was error made at the county level when permitting came through, that did not have this application reviewed by the ARB, and so therefore the ARB did not have their official review of the matter. And the county's attorneys has advised them not to, since it was not under their review.
Interesting. Well, it's curious because I have a project right now in Fairfax County that also had a mistake that they've gone back and now are rectifying the mistake on. So I'm a little confused at why they're differing on that aspect. But okay. All right. Let's go around. Let's have some discussion. If you guys have a question, we can talk to the applicant. But I think we kind of all know what's going on, but if you guys have an application or a question, let me know and we'll ask either contractor or designer. I think they also have their structural engineer on and their maybe architect as well. Elena, did you have any questions for them? Elena, you're muted.
So the color's still open. Am I missing that? There were a whole bunch of samples out there, but yet a color was called out to match the on slide 10, 11.
Yeah, my understanding is that what I see as metal panel color will match the parapet coping / gutter.
Yeah, that's what I
color.
see. Okay.
Yeah. Which is kind of like a light off white grayish color. Has anyone actually put one of these samples right next to that? Graham, have you guys put those samples right up on the what you guys are trying to match, and which one is like what you guys are thinking is the match?
We just dropped off all the samples to RA. At the last board meeting, there was questions about what color it would be, if it would be like a prefab aluminum. There's a handful of colors in that off-white that are very close to what the color of the downspout, and there's a little shield over a utility like on that front wall, and so there's a few colors that I think are very close, and we could certainly meet there, whomever would like to do that and look at them to pick the one that they like the most.
Okay. So answer your question, Elena. Yes, it's still open-ended.
Okay, so I see from slide 22 that the top of the parapet on the side wall, not the front face wall, the party wall, if you will, the shaft itself will be at approximately that height, and then as you move back, the drawing to that darker shaded rectangle at the top of the shaft is actually set back as in shown on 3. Is that a correct?
That's correct. Yeah, the previous approved package had the exhaust mushroom at the top of the wall. It was a straight run, and that was we were getting ready to install that, but the mechanical inspector wanted either a guardrail around it, which would have extended 42 inches from that top wall all the way around it, or it needed to be set back 10 feet from the building edge. Those were the two options. And, the least impactful option. There was also questions about, the structural ability to put it there without getting into the roof to verify, the condition at that corner. So the structural engineer wanted to span parapet wall to parapet wall and have no impact to the roof. So that also was a part of the 10-foot setback. And the reason the ductwork is 90ing above the top wall, and it does extend above that spine wall that we see there, is because nobody could verify the material of the roof, and so it needed to, by code, be 18 inches minimum, or transition from the welded grease duct to a internal insulated duct, a double wall duct, and that somebody made the suggestion. I think it was you, Michael, that originally, gave us that suggestion, and we checked with the mechanical engineer and with the county, and they've okayed that. So we would be planning to, right at about that 90, that we would transition to the double spiral right there, and run it very tight to the top wall to keep the entire profile under the spine wall. And then at some point, as it gets over to that 10-foot setback, it has to 90 up to get into the unit. And the unit has a minimum height because it's sitting on the steel. So those are all minimum tolerances to meet code.
Okay, so really what I was just trying to reconcile my understanding of the drawings with the comment that the duct goes above the parapet wall, but I see so the top of the party wall is at about 36.8, and that's about where the top of the vertical unit on the face of the building goes. Is that correct?
Yeah, like staff, go to page, just slide 23. I think these sections, just go down one page. These sections, Elena, I think this is what they're proposing, where it's going to turn. Yeah. So here is.
I understand. I'm just because of the concerns of the so the top of the parapet is at 34'3", and then if you look on 22, the top of the duct when it turns is at about 36'8". If you zoom in on the drawing number 2, the rendered elevation number 2. So it's going to come up, so it's going to align with the top of the party wall.
That's correct.
And I'm just asking for them to confirm that. And then it seems to me that the width of this enclosure isn't indicated, and the clearance from the window, and I might have missed it on, there's a lot of drawings.
Nope, that was one of my questions as well, Elena, actually. Because it seems like from the rendering, it's wider than it necessarily needs to be.
That's my sense too.
Because like if you look at the existing duct that's there, there's probably, I don't know, 18 inches or so to the window corner, the window edge. And it looks like in this rendering, it makes it look like it's going to get almost right up on it, where in reality, it seems like we should be able to keep it off of that window a little bit farther. Do you guys know what the actual final width is going to be?
So if you look at slide 24, section 4 roof plan, it's showing that the metal wall panels are coming, you're putting in some steel framing or studs, and then you're putting the metal wall panels, and then you have some kind of minimum clearance around. Do we have so it's 1 A400. Yeah, so please answer, do we have 1 A400 in this package?
Benjamin, if you're there from our team.
Yeah, it's in slide 23. Slide 23.
Able to help with that. I know we looked at the minimum clearance to clear the brackets. There's some structural brackets that are holding the ductwork up. And that framing is going to be as tight to that as possible to minimize this, dimension.
Can you guys unmute Benjamin Keeney, please?
The request was sent to him.
Okay,
Yeah, there we go.
Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I just gave all the answers, but I guess I could. Sorry. No. So the duct itself is definitely smaller than the wall needs to be because of the stud framing. There are a series of brackets needed to support the duct against the wall, and the framing has to basically float outside of those with enough space so that they don't touch and conduct galvanic action and things like that. So it's probably not firmly dimensioned on the plans, but we're thinking it's around 30 inches, or I'm sorry, no, how big is it? Yeah. It's probably an inch of ACM on a 3 5/8 stud with a 5/8 gypsum, and as tight to the duct and the strapping as possible. So at the end of the day, we're trying to keep it as tight as possible, but with the understanding that the stud framing obviously has its own thickness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just think that having that dimension and having a dimension that you guys are going to build to we should be kind of critical to the application. And I think it'll also help the affected parties understand exactly where this is going. Figure out if you need a 2-inch clearance, are you guys switching that duct to 0 clearance duct as well, or is that staying the welded grease duct?
That's staying. That's minimum dimensions where it is. So we're going to transition that right at the top. So right below.
So not till the top. So are you guys gonna wrap that existing grease duct with fire wrap, or does it need to be, because you're gonna keep it next to non-combustible material?
It'll be non-combustible.
Yeah, non-combustible. Yep.
Okay, so the air gap then should be, if we're using all non-combustible material, the air gap should be very minimal, right?
Correct. Probably half an inch. Right.
So if we have a ½ inch and then we have 3 5/8 plus 5/8, we're at 4 1/8. Or 4 1/4, sorry, plus an inch. You said the panel's an inch?
It can be an inch. Usually they're 2, but we could route and return a 2-inch return or a 1-inch return to keep it tighter against the sheathing.
So theoretically, if we're 5 1/4 plus a ½ inch air gap, then we're at 5 3/4.
Right.
So let's just say 6 inches beyond what is there now, which to me is much less than what is currently depicted in the rendering. By probably about, I don't know, 8 to 10 inches probably. Does anyone have an accurate dimension of what the ductwork is from the window right now?
I'm looking for that right now. I do have it.
The detail shows. Section detail. It's not that much different, but it might be 6.
Slide 65 shows an existing photo of that duct. It's kind of as close to elevation as I think we might get. Can we look at the count brick or something?
Yeah, these bricks are standard 8 inches. So
it's about 16 inches then.
Yeah.
There's probably, looks like there's 2 courses. It's hard.
But you've got to see that brace, there's an angle. I bet somewhere between the 2 windows, at the top of the bottom window, there's an angle that they're going to have to miss.
Well, I'm assuming, are we anchoring the metal stud into that angle to support it?
What I heard was they were going to keep it separate. I don't know.
They want to be independent, I think, in terms of keeping the duct and the stud framing independent. So if there's some thermal things happening as the metal slightly expands as it's heated, I think it would be better to keep them independent. But we can brace the stud framing to the wall by basically pinning the cold form steel back and then keeping that separation. So really the limiting factor is that angle. The width of a brick is nominally 8 inches, including one of the head joints of mortar. So 8 plus maybe 4, we have, I'm guessing, a little more than a foot. So if the nominal thickness is 6 inches for the wall, the new panel should be roughly 6 inches off the face of the rough opening in the window.
Okay. All right.
I think it shows a little bigger. It shows a little bigger.
Okay.
I mean, it's hard to tell
All
in
right.
the rendering,
So-
but it's not too far off though. It's
Yeah. It just, I think it'd be nice to have that dimension, that final dimension, so you guys know what you're building to, and that way we can make sure that it's also, built correctly, and everyone knows what we're getting. Because essentially, what's happened in this application is just there's been a lot of what we've approved versus what's actually gone in based on different clearances, and unfortunately, every quarter inch in this matter kind of matters. So I think that's part of the question. So Elena, does that kind of help clear it up a little bit? We're
Yes,
looking
thank
like
you.
it's going to be roughly. I actually think it's going to be a little more than 6, but once again, I think it's going to be 6 to 9 inches from that window opening. So, any other questions, Elena?
No, thank you.
All right, Brian, did you have any questions?
I got a couple of questions. Kind of back to the rooftop louver. When the duct makes this 90 and is wrapped in the metal panel and then goes into the louver, I don't know which is better, but was it looked at maybe like expanding that louver, that screen wall to encapsulate this 90 potentially, or is that not possible?
It was looked at, but what that would effectively do is it would take that metal gesture and bring it above the party wall. And we were trying to keep it as low as possible so the party wall is still prominent. And it kind of reads as that separate division in that radiated arc, segmented arc. So our thoughts were to basically keep the screen as low as possible all the way up, and then that final little 90 as it just steps up about twice as high is set back 9 or so feet from the base of the roof.
I got you. So theoretically, from street level or something, with this being lower, hopefully it's less visible.
It's less obtrusive, right? That's the intent. Right.
So okay, so and then next question on the louver. I mean, at least in the way it's rendered, and this, I know this is kind of an elevation, so it's like we're looking through and seeing it, but I assume the louvers are angled,
upside down angled. Yeah. So this is probably drawn in Revit, and it's whatever was in the curtain wall family. Sorry about that. The actual product, though, typically it's not a louver, it's actually a screen wall, and the panels are basically pointing upwards on a 45 or so degree angle so that wind can go through them, air can circulate. But if you see up into it, you're not seeing between the panels like you would if it was like a lap siding orientation. It's actually the other way. So your view line is seeing the bottom of that panel. I'm sure they're all over the place in Tyson's Corner, places like that. It's what you typically see on the top of a high rise.
I just want to make sure, if you're looking up, we're not just getting like an avenue right to the unit, that it's actually going to screen it.
Is there an image of it on slides? What the heck is this? 79. I think there might be a little teeny image of what we're trying to describe here. That guy there, yeah.
So that's the old one.
Okay, but okay, fair enough.
Yeah, at that point it was like a fence.
Yeah.
That we kind of suggested doing. I think they have the right idea. It's a mechanical louver. I've done them on projects before where we've needed to screen things, and it's like he's saying, it's a reverse 45 degrees. So you don't, you can't, when you're looking up, the naked eye is not going to be able to see it, see what's behind it, and you're just going to see the color of the louver. So I think there could be a clearer cut sheet on what it actually is and what the manufacturer is, kind of like how they have a cut sheet on the actual louver that's on the side of the building. But that would be the only thing I would say is having an actual cut sheet, whoever's going to make the final louver, and what the final exact color is going to be, et cetera. So, but I like that this much bigger improvement. I think Brian, you've been a good proponent of this from the beginning, so I think it was a good comment. So,
I guess my last question, looking at that detail number 2, kind of the elevation. So it looks like these metal panels on the enclosure are kind of lapping. So we're going to see horizontal seams. And I'm just curious to understand, is this like the maximum panel size, or kind of how did you choose like the location of these seams?
Did you model this on a full size panel?
Mm-hmm.
And so these are routed. It's the way it works is it's a route and return system. They take the piece of ACM and they cut into the plastic and they take it and fold it an inch. And then they basically use that return to put a fastener assembly on the sheathing. So that panel limitation, I think it's actually a metric dimension, but it's somewhere around 30 by 60. And these dimensions, these panel sizes are intended to give us the least amount of joints. With that said, for a couple additional joints, maybe we could have them line up with the windows or floor lines or mullions or things like that. But currently this drawing shows as few joints as possible is the intent.
Yeah, no, you've hit exactly what I was just kind of wondering. Like, is there a way to make it more intentional? But I think there's something to be said for the minimum number of seams also. So I'll leave it at that. So Michael, that's it for me.
Okay. Mike B.
I don't have anything at this juncture, Michael. Thank you.
Okay. Emily.
No questions on my end.
Okay. Overall, I do think it's assuming we can basically assume that this drawing is actually what's going to be installed. I do think it's a significant improvement from an aesthetic standpoint to have these panels surrounding the ductwork versus the original application, which was just painted. So I even though the enclosure is getting slightly larger, I think we still need that final dimension to completely understand exactly how much larger it's getting. But I think overall the direction it's going is much better in the circumstances. The screen up top, I think we just need a cut sheet on it to make it. But once again, I think you guys are in the right direction once again for what it is. I would want to clarify that slide, I think it's slide 4, no, slide 5. So slide 5, staff, this drawing, is brought up by an affected party. This drawing, I believe, is inaccurate, right? It's showing the ductwork still going up, which has all been confirmed that this is inaccurate and it's going to be lower. So I for the record, I'd like to just throw out this slide because it's not showing the actual, or it needs to be updated to accommodate the new zero clearance ductwork that's going to be transitioned to at the 90.
It's not precise would be the word I would use. It's how we plan to build it structurally, but it's definitely not a precise height.
Right.
But it does. So I'm sorry, Michael, but it does go above the existing 34'3" parapet. It does.
Correct. It has to, but the goal is for it to sit at the same height. What would be nice is an elevation shot on this that says 36'8" or whatever the existing party wall is, like that other drawing has,
right,
that shows it lining up, at the same height or below. I think it would, it's going to look the best if we're matching that parapet cap to it, basically just a line right with it. I think it'll,
yes,
it'll work. And from dimensionally, it looks like if they go to zero clearance duct, it's going to add 2 inches to the thickness of the duct, but it still should fit once they 90 it. But once again, the drawings just need to be a little bit more detailed to show it. I think overall, aesthetically, from a DRB standpoint, I think it meets the intent better of, kind of it's fitting in as best as it can with this architecture. So those are just kind of my thoughts on it. Does anybody have any thoughts further on it? Any motions, any other questions that they may want to ask? Any board members? So obviously, like I said previously, we cannot vote on the line set situation. We can talk about the existing, or not the existing, but the application that we're looking at. Are we Are we also one thing that was curious is the louver on the side of the building. Actually, I do have a question about that. Graham, is the louver that's installed going to get moved where you're going to have a new louver where it's actually in the drawing that we have, or is what is installed is significantly smaller than what was approved, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's also in a different location. What exactly is happening there? Are you guys going to be moving that louver and putting in this new louver that's part of this application that I see on slide 22?
No, it's a good question. So this is an item that we did work with Jason at LARCA. This was going back almost 2 years ago. But the building had all of their main water piping, up against that wall. And we worked with LARCA to figure out a way to get our ductwork out. So this location of what is shown at the smallest diameter possible to meet code is what has been installed. So we're not proposing to change anything. We could certainly document where it is now, but we tried to minimize it and work with LARCA on a routing that would allow it to work. Where we originally had it couldn't work because of a bunch of building constraints, and they weren't prepared to move any piping or do anything like that. And so there was some considerations that brought it to that location.
Yeah, I do think it would make sense to update the application to put it in the right location. That way, when you have a final DRB inspection, it's going to come up. Why is this thing in the wrong location based on what your application is saying? So
yeah, no problem. And also, I do want to clarify. We were not done with that work, so everything stopped. Many months ago. I just want to comment that's not our final, condition for that louver. It still needs to be finished and trimmed out and painted and so forth.
Yeah, that's what I think. I mean, what's tough right now is the community sees it as an unfinished piece of, work at the moment. And it's, obviously you're not going to leave the brick exposed like that where that opening is. There's either going to bring that louver out farther or do some sort of, trim, like you said, or parging or something to make it work with that masonry opening. But yeah, I would update the application to kind of accommodate that. I think it would be beneficial in the long term to make sure that we have it right if that is the now field condition status. So does anyone else have any other questions? Maybe a motion involved for the application? So since I don't hear anybody, I'll take a stab at a motion. I'm going to make a motion for conceptual approval that states that there are still further dimensions needed for the width of the shaft. The final structural detail with the zero clearance duct should be updated to show elevation heights of the parapet and the party wall. The louver be updated on the side of the building and what happened with field conditions, and that there actually be a cut sheet supplied for the visual screen, and that the applicant themselves, they need to go and compare the color samples to the parapet that they're trying to match, or the gutters, whatever they're trying to match, and provide a side-by-side comparison photo for the record and for the board to review. And we can weigh in at that moment. We cannot pick colors. You guys need to just tell us what color you want to, and we either approve or deny it. So that is my motion.
I'll second.
So there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Michael, did you want to make a note in your motion the items that we were expressly not commenting on at this juncture?
Yeah, make a motion that the line sets are not a part of this motion, and are still awaiting LARCA approval before being weighed on by the board. Elena, do you accept that amendment?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a motion, a second, an amendment, and it's been approved. So let's vote on it unless there's any further discussion. All right. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 5-0. You guys will have a letter for the conceptual approval, which basically just means you're going down the right path, and then, but we still just need all those details as laid out in the motion. So you guys should get a letter for that, and we will go on. We'll see you guys next month or the month after. All right. Next up on the agenda, I believe, is Resolution 8 and 10.
Yes. LaShonda, if you could pull that up, that'd be great. Hopefully everybody had a chance to review the memo that I wrote on the 10th, reviewing the fact that the draft resolutions to 8 and 10 were reviewed by the board at their February board meeting. Resolution 8 was approved, but there were some changes related to the timeline for appeals. So the RA Board of Directors changed the timeline from 7 business days to 10 business days. And those changes are highlighted in the draft resolution. Resolution 10 was not approved. Resolution 10 is associated with the affected party status. Due to a request that the DRB further clarify affected party status, and then potentially have a design review board member attend the meeting that we would present Resolution 10 edits, which would more than likely be the May board meeting. So I'll quickly go through Resolution 8. As I said, the only changes were the 7 business days to the 10 business days. Procedurally, we believe that the resolutions are, quite frankly, connected to one another and really should have been approved together or not at all, given the fact that they are so closely related. If you remember, the reason why we suggested the 7 business days was because in your general situations where there's an appeal, that is going to be either by an affected party or an owner. Generally, they know that evening, if they've gotten a decision that is not favorable, that they are going to appeal. It's just a matter of getting the procedural forms and paperwork submitted. So what happens is when the meeting happens, like tonight, the applicants know what the decision of the meeting is. And then 7 days later, so next Tuesday, that's when they actually get the decision. And so the time clock for an appeal doesn't start until the decision is provided. So based on the existing design guideline, which the existing resolution, it provides 15 days for an appeal to be submitted, which in essence is basically 3 weeks from the original date of the review of the application. So basically all the board did was add business days, which essentially is going to be 14 days. And then we're back to the original idea of an applicant not being able to move forward with their project for 3 weeks after the meeting that their application was reviewed. I'm not sure that point was made very clearly to the board. So if there is a overwhelming desire to have staff emphasize that point at the Board Operations Committee and then the Board of Directors meeting in May, I am happy to do that. But if the DRB is content with the 10 business days, we will not propose any changes to the resolution as it's written currently.
We propose 7 days, right? Not business days.
No, we propose 7 business days. The concept there was the continuity throughout the entire resolution to maintain business days.
Gotcha. And did you present this to them, I'm assuming?
I did present it to the board. There wasn't a lot of discussion. As I'm sure you all are aware, board meetings tend to run a little long. And so I don't think that there was an emphasis on the fact that basically they didn't really change the resolution timeline. They just changed 15 days to 10 business days, which is essentially the same thing.
Yeah. Well, unless there's holidays. Then they're the same thing.
And really the goal here again was to try to better serve the member. One of the comments that we always get is that basically a homeowner can't move forward with their project for 3 weeks because they have to wait for the affected party to either decide to appeal or not. And in most situations, the affected party tends to wait until the very last day. And so that then prevents them from being scheduled to the next available meeting. So say this meeting, there's an appeal. If they wait until the last day, they most certainly won't make the May meeting. They may not even make the June meeting. So their next available meeting could be July. It's a significant amount of time.
Well, don't we also have a resolution that states though that an applicant has to be reviewed within a timely manner of a, I forget exactly what the time frame is. Does that apply to appeals?
No. So an application has already been officially reviewed and provided a decision within the 60-day time frame. I think that's what the deed provides. So the appeals process does not.
Yeah, well, I mean, since we got to go back, let's fight. Let's say we want 7.
Okay, I will most certainly bring that forward to the board for their review and consideration. It's helpful that, of course, this meeting is live streamed and recorded so they can come back and watch the discussion. So if there's any other comments from any other design review board members that you'd like to go on record with, I'd appreciate it.
Well, is the board liaison here? Is Bob here or?
I don't see Bob and I don't see John, but as the board has recently changed, so there was an election. There's a new board president, and I don't believe they've officially provided committee assignments. So
Cam, I knew that. Okay. I voted, I think. So anyways, okay. So I guess, yeah, I think we should fight for it.
I agree. I think that whatever we can do to support the homeowners getting on with their projects and finding out what the final decision is, the better.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, an appeal, it can be, especially if it's a con decision, let's say, right? It could be appealed 2 times, and then it could drag on for quite a while. If the affected party wanted to play that side of it, which I've seen it happen, so I know it can take a long time, and it takes up a lot of our time. So 7 business days, I agree. I think is just fine to fight for, especially since we got to go back for resolution 10.
Yes.
Anyways.
So, any other comments that any other design review board members would like to go on the record to make so that I can take that to the board?
I'd echo what Elena, I believe, had just said about helping homeowners get their projects moving. It's a process, so if we can help speed things along, it would be appreciated.
Thank you. So then going into resolution 10, the comment and feedback related to sending this back was to clarify affected party status. One of the things that I think is really important to note in this resolution, there were no changes to it. The discussion was just merely to bring it back to the design review board for clarity on affected party status. I'm not entirely sure what the clarity what clarity was needed. And unfortunately, the design review board liaisons are not here tonight. But my takeaway from the meeting in which I linked in my memo in the discussion was that there was a concern about potentially having, our larger projects around, like, for example, Reston Town Center North, where there may be a need to have a little bit more flexibility in affected party status. However, I don't necessarily know if the concern related to clarity on the affected party status is needed, given the fact that ultimately the design review board is intended to review affected party status and determine whether or not someone is materially impacted or not. And if we go to page, sorry, give me 1 second. If we go to page 10, thank you. If you look at the affected party status, affected party definition, it does already state materially impacted in the original resolution without the edits. And all we've done is defined materially impacted. So really procedurally, there is no change in the design review board really reviewing if someone is an affected party or not. That process is really the same. And my experience has been that the design review board, if someone has registered, has provided advance notice of that registration, there generally is not an issue with recognizing their affected party status. And for the much larger projects, there's a significant amount of notification that's connected to resolution 11 related to any application that comes in as a plan amendment or a comprehensive, let me get the specific language. Any project that requires Fairfax County applications, being the comprehensive plan amendment, development plan amendment, or a special exemption or PRC plan, that has a totally different notification process, which is actually extremely robust. There's a 21-day advance notice of the meeting. There is a postcard notification, the first class mail to 25 different property owners within 500 feet of the applicant's property. It's pretty substantial. And so ultimately, I'm not clear on what the clarity is or what the clarity of what the desire was on that part, since all we've done is define materially impacted, and it still is in the DRB's purview to determine whether or not someone is an affected party or not. And there's process in place for if affected party status is denied, that decision or that application is actually not reviewed until the full design review board weighs in on affected party status, which has not happened since I've been here. So I'm not necessarily convinced that the design review board needs to provide clarity, but if you all were able to take a look at the video of the meeting and the conversation, and you have any suggestions on how we can provide the clarification that may have been desired, I'm happy to make those changes and present them to the board operations committee.
Well, and maybe we can just draft, a letter that's officially, whatever, I can sign it and jointly from as a board that says, this is what our thinking was. And that way, just in case obviously we're the ones coming to them with these amendments. So I'm assuming that they, and what I think is we also introduced the interested party. I mean, that to me is maybe they didn't see that portion, because that to me, it helps in those bigger projects or even just projects like tonight. Like I would say that one guy, that registered today he wasn't an affected party, he was an interested party. And because his property is not materially impacted, but he is an interested party who wants to speak. And as a member of Reston Association, I think you should have that right. So, and anyways, I think we could draft a letter. I mean, that just kind of gives our official statement to answer their question. I mean, what do you think of that?
Sure. Staff is happy to draft that up and send it out to the design review board for unanimous approval. And then Michael, if you want to sign it as the chair, that would be great.
Okay. What does everyone else think of that?
Sounds reasonable. Have we lost?
I take silence as a yes.
Yeah, I don't disagree, Michael. I think it's the letter sounds like a very reasonable path forward.
Okay.
Okay. So then if there is Michael, if you're available to attend the May board meeting, let me know. I'll send you the details of the date.
When is it?
It is the last Thursday of the month. So next month's meeting will be May. So it will be May 25th.
Okay. Maybe.
It's right before Memorial Day weekend. So, I totally get it. That's why I'm happy that we're able to have this conversation and it's recorded so that the board can review this discussion. And then, of course, the letter would be helpful as well. But if any other DRB member would like to attend, it would be helpful for sure.
Yeah. Okay. If anyone's interested, May 25th. So let us know. Anything else, Cam?
That's it.
All right. Anybody got any other thoughts?
I'd make a motion to adjourn, Michael.
I'll second that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you,
Thank
staff.
you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye, guys. See ya.
Thanks, everyone.